What's going on, guys? Vulkan here, and over the last 4 days we've had just tons of game reveals, new updates, lots of new information for some existing games, and this was all thanks to Summer Game Fest, Summer of Gaming, the Xbox Game Showcase, Devolver Digital, the dev thing that they did. Like, there's so much that went into this past weekend. It was awesome. We learned a ton. And big shout out to everybody who makes that possible, especially in the absence of E3. And honestly, in a lot of ways, I think Summer Game Fest has taken over E3 in terms of reveals. But anyway, so we learned a lot, right? We learned about new games from the makers of Neo, the first new game from Bethesda in over 25 years, a game that I thought was dead, like dead, and then lots and lots more. So with this video, I'm going to be covering my favorite RPG reveals, and then in the next video, I'm going to cover my favorite shooter reveals. So let's go ahead, let's get into it so I don't waste too much of your guys' time. So we're going to get things kicked off with one of the most anticipated games of the year, STARFIELD. So this is the first new IP from Bethesda in over 25 years, and their ambition is incredibly high with this one, and that was on full display during their gameplay reveal. So we got our first look at Starfield's gameplay, and there were some obvious frame rate drops, but even with those, the game still looked unbelievable. We were introduced to the shooting systems, ship customization, which is cool. You can go and customize your ship and then take that ship out into space. You can fly around in space. You have dogfights, the Crimson Fleet, which are like these space pirates. They'll show up and you can fight them and all that fun stuff. We saw some jetpack action, some looting. He found a new weapon, which was really cool, and threw that on. But there's just so much that was packed into this Starfield reveal that honestly, if you want to know most of the things that they showed, you need to go watch the reveal yourself. I put all the links to everything I'm going to be talking about today in the description below, so feel free to go check that out. But here's what I will say. They confirm this game will have 1,000 planets that are fully explorable, unique, and full of things to discover. So you can fly to the planet, land anywhere on the surface, and immediately start exploring to see what you can kind of drum up. So really, that's what I'll leave you with. But like I said, if you want to see more about Starfield, the link is in the description below to the full reveal. Starfield is set to launch in 2023. Now, moving to our next game, this is a big one for all of those action RPG fans out there, and that is Diablo 4. So Diablo 4 received a new gameplay trailer and revealed the Necromancer as the final class, along with confirming that the game will be releasing in 2023. Now, Diablo 4 is coming in hot on the heels of Diablo Immortal, and after all of the controversy that game has stirred up, Rod Ferguson and Adam Fletcher took to Twitter to confirm that Diablo 4 will be a full-priced game with cosmetic purchases and future expansions only. So right now, the game itself does look fantastic, but going through the whole Immortal thing, this should obviously draw some skepticism from players. But overall, Diablo 4 looks incredible, both visually. They're introducing a lot of shared world elements. You can stumble upon other players to do world events and world bosses. You have nightmare dungeons in terms of your end game. You have Paragon boards. There's so much that's going to be packed into this one. And they claim it is a huge game, massive, and it's going to be a true next generation Diablo for players. Again, there's a lot packed into this, so feel free to check that link in the description below. Now, the next one I want to talk about is ZENLESS Zone Zero, which honestly I didn't know too much about until a couple days before Summer Game Fest. I had just seen a couple tweets, people were talking about it, and it caught my interest. So this is a new action RPG from Hoyoverse, which are the makers of Genshin Impact. Now, they did have another reveal, Star Rail, which also looked great, but it was more of a tactical RPG, and for me, action RPGs are where I live, so ZENLESS Zone Zero was definitely more in my wheelhouse. Now, the game itself is set in a post-apocalyptic metropolis and comes with an engaging story with a futuristic art style and an engaging combat system, according to the developers. Now, players are going to play as a proxy, and they serve as guides through dangerous areas known as hollows. But just like in Genshin Impact, you will be able to take control of various characters and unleash combos and skills to clear out enemies. So to me, if you liked Genshin, you're going to enjoy this one. I bet there'll be a gacha system in this one as well, so I'm just going to put that out there now, that if you didn't like that system in Genshin, it'll probably still be here in ZENLESS, but I don't have any confirmation of that. That's just a gut feeling. So ZENLESS Zone Zero currently does not have a release date, so keep your eyes peeled for any additional information for that one. Now moving into our next game, we have Nightingale. So this is one of those games that snuck up on me when it was revealed less than a year ago. So it came from some former BioWare devs. Nightingale is an upcoming survival action RPG where players take up the role of realm walkers. Now the premise of the game drops players at the beginning of a story where the portals suddenly stop working, so we can no longer travel to other realms. And it's up to us to figure out how to get back to the city of Nightingale to see what happened. Now, in terms of gameplay, this is a first-person game where you're going to wield a variety of weapons and tools to complete objectives. We've seen a lot of gameplay with like axes, wooden crossbows, breakover shotguns, a lot of interesting things there, as well as interesting enemies to fight. Now, there are some core aspects outside of combat, things like base building, gathering, you have hunger, warmth, you need to establish shelter, and you have to pay attention to all of these things to make sure you survive. But this is all stuff that we knew, right? Going into this is all stuff that we knew. So the big new reveal that they dropped at over this past weekend was their realm card system and how players can craft realm cards to help influence where the portals will take you. Now these range from incredibly dangerous areas with very little resources to peaceful areas with an abundance of materials. And you have to use these realm cards to sort of target where you want to go and help limit or expand the amount of portals that you would like access to. Nightingale is entering early access in Q4 of 2022. Now, next up is Evil West. So this is one I feel like is falling under the radar for a lot of people. Evil West did not have a huge reveal when it came to when the game was first shown off, right? It didn't have like a big grandiose thing. So people really didn't talk about it then. Now here we are, and this was revealed at, I think, the Future Gaming Show or IGN Summer of Gaming, one of those two. But Evil West had a release date trailer. And again, I just did not see a lot of people talking about this one. So I think it's a combination of two things. We don't have a huge amount of information on the game, but guys, it looks incredibly fun. You play as this badass vampire hunter set in the Wild West, and your goal is to really just eradicate all vampires. It's very simple. The game comes from Flying Wild Hog, who are known for the Shadow Warrior series, Space Punks action RPG, and Hard Reset. So they have a strong pedigree in shooters. Now, from the gameplay elements that we've seen, this game has tons of gore, explosive combat, and from the press sheet that they released, you can play this game solo or co-op. So it's not just a solo-only experience. Now, in terms of progression, they did mention that we can upgrade our weapons and tools while unlocking new skills. That way we can make killing more efficient. So again, this is one I think a lot of people are going to enjoy, but because of the lack of coverage and the lack of marketing, really, it doesn't have a lot of, I guess, exposure or presence. Anyway, Evil West is set to release September 20th, 2022. I highly recommend checking it out. So let's move into the biggest surprise. Okay, the award for biggest surprise in this whole event goes to Routine. So when I first saw Routine back in 2014, just let that sink in. 2014 is when I last saw Routine. I was really looking forward to it. They had a full like 12-minute gameplay trailer or something like that. And it was from IGN. So it had, gotten out and they had shared it with IGN, who then posted it on YouTube. And then I ended up sharing this video with my coworkers, and we were all super pumped to see what it ended up being. Like, man, I can't wait for Routine. And then it just disappeared. Just flat out disappeared. No more blog posts, no more updates, just complete radio silence. And I honestly thought it died. I was like, man, that's just another vaporware game that's, super sad, pouring out for Routine. And then at Summer Game Fest, it showed up and I was shocked. I mean, when I say I was shocked, I was shocked. It blew me away. So Routine is a first-person sci-fi horror game set in an abandoned lunar base designed around an 80s vision of the future, which you can definitely tell because they have like a whole bunch of like VHS looking camera guns called a cat that they used in the trailer. But the overall premise here is pretty interesting. So you're sent to investigate a lunar base after it completely goes silent. There's tons of people there, supposed to be, but they're all gone. And you make some surprising discoveries that lead to deeper unknowns, all while being pursued by an enemy that believes you are the main threat. So that's all we know so far. Now, if we go back and take a look at the actual gameplay that was released back in like 2014, like I mentioned, there's some interesting stuff in there as well. I think the original premise was like you were a maintenance individual and you were coming around to the lunar base because there was some stuff that was offline, and then you realize everyone is gone. There's no bodies, there's no people, there's just nothing. It's just like clothes, bags, everything's in disarray. It looks like chaos, like there was a big struggle, but literally everyone is gone. So I'm curious if they kept that same kind of frame or if this was completely taken down to the studs, because that is what led to the whole delay. They got done with the game and they said, we really don't like what we have. So they scrapped it all and completely started over, and they didn't make a release date like they did last time. And here we are. Here's the fruit of their labor. So I'm really excited for it, and I cannot wait to get my hands on Routine. Now, one of the things I do really like about this game is the incredibly minimal UI. It helps create this kind of deep sense of immersion with the game that I think people are really going to enjoy. So Routine does not have a release date. That is by design. They said they did not want to make that mistake again. The game will be ready when it's ready. Okay, so our next game keeps up with the whole sci-fi space horror theme, and that is Callisto Protocol. This was another huge game that people were really looking forward to. So if you liked Dead Space, you're going to really like this one. So Callisto Protocol follows the story of Jacob Lee, who is a victim of fate that was thrown into the Black Iron Prison, which is a maximum security prison located on Jupiter's moon, Callisto. But when the inmates begin transforming into creatures, the prison is thrown into chaos, and Jacob is forced to survive and escape this, I mean, for lack of a better term, this absolute hellhole. So the game features brutal and visceral combat, whether it's getting blended up in dangerous machinery or having your head torn off by the horrors that roam the facility. Combat in Callisto requires players to blend hand-to-hand and ranged combat to defend yourself against enemies. They also showcased a gravity weapon that was formerly used by some of the Black Iron guards that you end up picking up. Callisto Protocol is releasing December 2nd, 2022. And like I said, if you like Dead Space, keep this one high on your list. So keeping the list moving, we have the next entry from the makers of Neo, Wo Long Fallen Dynasty. So this game is a dark fantasy game set in the Chinese Three Kingdoms period that blends historical events with supernatural. The game continues that trend that we know and love from Neo of brutal action combat, and this completely kind of falls in line with other Souls-like games, so don't expect an easy walk through the park. Now, in terms of information, that's all we have. Like, that is it. But knowing how great and large of an influence Neo was and had, we can expect this game to deliver an awesome experience. Wo Long is arriving in 2023. So our second to last game is Flintlock Siege of Dawn. Now, this is a game that I've been following for a very long time, and I just love the look and feel of it. It's like a Flintlock fantasy, right? So you have kind of the Flintlock era of humanity mixed in with a lot of supernatural elements, and it looks great. So players are going to follow the story of Nor Vanek, who is accompanied by a trickster god in the form of a fox named Inky. Now, until this point, we've only seen a cinematic trailer, right? We got to see Inky kind of locking down this skeleton knight with some sort of like gravity magic, and then we got to see Nor just absolutely unload with her flintlock pistol and blow that dude away. So it was a really cool thing, got me hooked, but we hadn't really seen much in terms of gameplay. But yesterday at the Xbox Showcase, we did get to see a lot of gameplay to see exactly how this game plays out. We got to see an agile movement system, Inky's powers, lots of explosions since Nor is an explosives expert, and fast combat. So overall, I'm really excited for this one. I'm hoping that it delivers just as much as I think it will. But anyway, Flintlock releases in 2023, so keep your eyes peeled. Now, our last game is Minecraft Legends. So this is a brand new game from Mojang that takes place in the Minecraft universe. Now, we don't know much about it other than the game takes place in the overworld of Minecraft, where you need to gather and lead allies against the piglins. Now, Mojang is classifying this game as an action strategy game, and from the gameplay, it looks like you're going to take the role of a commander that leads enemies to take over fortresses and eliminate piglin strongholds. Right now, that is truly all we know. Minecraft Legends is set to release in 2023. So everybody, that wraps up this video. Those are my favorite reveals from Summer Game Fest over this weekend. We had lots of awesome game reveals, including ones that weren't listed here, but still, you have some fantastic games to look forward to over the next year. So everyone, I want to hear from you guys. Which one was your favorite? Which one can you not just wait to get your hands on? Thank you so much for watching. This has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you guys next time.